Tash Talks is proudly sponsored by Recharge for smarter subscription experiences. The world's best brands are powered by routine, and the world's best routines are powered by Recharge. Hello and welcome to Tash Talks, the chat show where I sit down with some of the most inspirational female founders and leaders in the UK today. Now, many people say that England is a country built on tea, and certainly tea is most definitely part of what makes Great Britain Great Britain. And my guest today is someone who is boldly venturing into the tea industry and creating significant disruption. I'd love to welcome Krisi Smith, the founder of Bird and Blend Tea. Welcome, Krisi. Fabulous to have you here today. The first thing I want to say is, I love this look. You look so trendy.
In pink. Yeah.
And you just said as we walked down the stairs, you've just got to be yourself.
Yeah, I think I often walk into a room and perhaps look a little bit different to your average kind of business person. But yeah, I think it's important to just be yourself and be comfortable in your own skin. So yeah, I've been kind of rocking this look for a little while now.
I don't think there is any such look now as an average business person, though, is there?
No,
particularly with all the entrepreneurs and all the incredible creativity in the brand world. There's so many different unique founders behind brands.
There are, and I think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's really cool. And I think that stereotype of kind of what a business person is, you know, in the suit and whatever else, yeah.
Is
days gone by. Yeah.
So talking of a business person, who is Krisi Smith? Who are you?
Oh, that's a big question.
I know, it's a big question.
So I am a co-founder of Bird and Blend Tea Company, which I started nearly 12 years ago now, which sounds a bit, in some ways it feels like a very long time ago, because I was 24 when I started it, but in some ways it feels like yesterday. I can't believe it's been 12 years. But I am a tea expert now, wasn't at the start. I'm an author as well, and I have had the opportunity to do so many things throughout Bird and Blend. It's been fantastic. So I guess a decade of my life has been Bird and Blend. So when people ask me who's Krisi, I usually, lead with that. It's interesting because I've started to think to myself, now the business is it's like having a baby. It's starting to kind of stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And I've started to think to myself, well, actually, who is Krisi, not doing Bird and Blend 24/7?
And have you got the answer?
Yeah. Not yet, but it's been something that I've been kind of working on and exploring and thinking about over the last couple of years as the business has got bigger and we've got really experienced leaders in the business now, and it doesn't rely on me so heavily. It's kind of, it's freeing, but it's also a little bit terrifying to figure that out. Who are you outside of the world of
work.
The world of work, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still an entrepreneur if you're not in your business day to day? I don't know. I'm still figuring that out.
So tell us about Bird and Blend Tea then. It's a fantastic brand. You've got nearly 20 stores.
Yes.
But it all started with you and your now ex-husband, is
yeah,
that right?
But still business partner.
We're
Yes.
coming on to that in a bit, but you're now ex-husband, and so
yes. Yeah, so we specialise in creative blending. So we use ingredients from all over the world, quite fun stuff as well.
I've really seen some of your fun recipes and your fun blends.
Chocolate digestives and, rhubarb and custard and snowball at Christmas and, hot cross bun at Easter, all sorts of things. And originally they all came out of my brain, literally my brain. And I think as a young person, I was looking for a business opportunity that would enable me to be quite creative, but also have a connection to people, both in the company, but also, I say in the company, in the early days, it was literally Mike and I and the dog for like 4 years. That was it. And people would ring up and say oh, can we speak to your marketing department? I'd be like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, it's still me. Go speak to customer service. Yeah, that's me also. But yeah, we specialise in blending. We always wanted to have physical retail stores. That was the plan from the very beginning, even though we were advised by lots of people way more experienced than us not to do it. Because I think it was all about that kind of that connection and that experience, and tea was the kind of vehicle that I could kind of be creative with and create that connection.
But why tea? How did tea cross with your creativity?
It's a good question. I think I didn't drink tea until I was 22. I didn't even like tea or coffee. And I was looking for a business idea. And I ended up working for a tea company out in Canada.
Okay.
Where Mike and I had escaped to ski. You know, we were being ski bums. And I worked for this company and it had all these different creative blends. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. You know, there's something here for everybody.
Yeah.
And I just loved discovering it and learning about it. So I thought to myself, I think I could do this. Don't have any business qualifications, don't have any tea, well I do now, but I didn't have any tea qualifications. And I thought, back in the UK, where I'm obviously where I'm from, we only had tea that was either, I guess, healthy, so you had to go to Holland and Barrett maybe for a lemon and ginger or something for weight loss or whatever. You had your regular cuppa that we all drink loads of, and it's in Tesco for 99p, or it's attached to kind of regality or like an afternoon tea with your friends or the Ritz. And I thought no one's really on the high street approaching tea with like versatility, fun, flavour, and quite a lot of them just don't. The ones that are supposed to be fun and flavourful just don't taste of anything.
Yeah.
So I thought,
that's very true.
I think I can do this.
Yeah. I
don't know why someone's not done it yet in the UK. Maybe because we are attached to that kind of tradition. So I managed to convince Mike to come back for the summer after the ski season ended, and we went to. I created 20 blends, and we went all summer to anywhere that would have us, like festivals, markets, with a little table, you know, like a plastic table, and an awful, awful tablecloth. God, photos, it's so bad. And we would just pull our tea out, and we would just talk to everybody that went by, tell them about what we were doing. And by the end of the summer, we'd made a tiny bit of money, we'd sold a lot of tea, and we had this small collection, this, I guess now like a marketing database, but it was a clipboard of people that wanted to stay in touch. So we kind of decided to kind of jump all in and look for a retail store. And then the rest is history.
That's incredible. That was quite a bold move then.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we did have a website back then. I learned how to build a big commerce site on YouTube, but we'd get an order like once every month or something. It was like it was nothing. But we really, from spending a whole summer doing literally market research, we didn't realise that's what we were doing. We served hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, well, thousands of people that were like, this is really cool. We haven't seen this before. I'm really into this. And we thought, I think this needs to be on a high street. Let's give it a go. And actually, if it doesn't work, we were still like young 20s. You know, we didn't have a mortgage, didn't have kids. So we were quite brave. Naive might be a better way of putting it.
Where did you get the money from, and where was the first store?
So the first store, we got the money for the first store from a startup loan.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so we took a startup loan. This is in 2014 for £25,000. And we used that to open the first store and the shop fit on the first store. And then the rest of it was just reinvesting the money we made. I mean, we were on a shoestring. Like we slept in the back of a van the whole of the summer, travelling between events that we got for like 500 quid. And fitting the shop front out in Brighton, we just got like a job lot of scaffolding boards from eBay. And I learnt how to put them up. Mike did I shouldn't say this, but did the original electrics in the store. We were just Googling like, how do we like pop up in a store basically, and did it on a proper shoestring. And we still have that scaffolding in our stores now. And we have people go, this is so cool. Like, who designed this? This is amazing. So eco. And I'm like, well, it is eco, but it came from because we literally had no money. And we were like, how do we get cool shelves up, you know, on a budget? And we opened Brighton in 2014, and Mike and I ran the shop, just us, for a year, and would pack orders downstairs in the basement. And that was the first 2 years of Bird and Blend.
Fast forward today.
I know, fast forward today, and yeah, we've now not really changed the store model that much. You get the same customer journey, similar layout, We really, because we spent those first few years on the streets in Brighton and got to know the local traders and the independents and the customers, and you know what it's like. You make friends with people, you get networks and events, and all that kind of community. What we've tried to do as we open more stores is, although we're bigger now, we try to make sure each store is empowered to have the manager and the team are empowered to be quite local.
Yeah.
And they all look a bit different, and they're empowered to kind of make their own connection, do their own events, support their own charities, because we want them to be like a hub in the local community.
And it was really interesting when you were talking about that experience you had over the summer where you didn't really realise you were doing market research,
No,
but
I
you
did.
were.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my businesses is in Portobello Road, and I know one of your shops is there as well. And I always look at that market, and I've worked a lot in that market, and I think it's such a good environment.
It really is,
Standing in front of people, because the volume of people that come through a market like Portobello, it's a lot of market research you can do in one day. Absolutely. And I think to be willing to do that, to stand there and just have your wares out on a table and see people's reaction actually really helps develop your skills and your product market fit.
It does. I honestly can't. It was the best start in business.
Yeah.
We lived and breathed that business for the first three years, from markets to slightly bigger events to a shop floor. We did some pop-ups first, then a shop floor. And like you said, you get direct feedback. And
you can see the looks on people's faces as they're looking at things. You're like, okay.
Yeah. And actually, and those early customers as well, we noticed that they were really interested. Yes, they were interested in the teas and the flavours, but they were really interested in our story and the people behind the brand. And I think that meant that quite quickly we had this small but very, very dedicated fan base that were just obsessed about Bird and Blend, which still maintains today. We do surveys a couple of times a year to ask about the things that people love about our brand, and the tea usually features in the top 3, but it's never number 1. It's always the team or the service. And so that we learnt that from those early days of people enjoying learning about the stories about the business or about tea and being taught something, having experience, having a human face behind the counter. And so even though Mike and I are not on a shop floor very often anymore, sometimes still get out there with a sample tray on the street, we have made sure that that's like through the DNA, that the actual joy of coming into a Burn and Blend store is being able to explore with that team member, try loads of teas, learn something, have a fun time. And that's why I think we've managed to succeed at a time where physical retail is a difficult space.
I mean, I think you've done 2 things. You've bucked a trend there, and also you have disrupted a very established market. I don't think many other people have got cut through in that tea market, have they? I mean, when I look at it, I think you are one of the only ones who really has against the bigger players in the market. You've obviously been around for a long time.
I think so. Well, thank you. But yeah, I think so. I mean, we when we opened our first store, the tea market in the UK was in grocery, for example, you would have your breakfast teas and maybe you'd find a rooibos and a green tea. But now there's whole aisles and blended and flavoured and green, and it's growing massive. Matcha, or chai, it's all growing out. It's trendy now and it's a bigger category. But back then, there weren't really any players. And on the high street, no. I mean, the only real competitor I guess we really have on the actual physical high street would be Whittard's.
Yes.
But I believe we're very different and we offer a different thing to them.
Yes, I think you're...
it's completely different.
It is completely different, for sure.
Is.
So you mentioned that you and your former ex-husband who founded the business are now business partners, not together. That must have been a big transition.
A little bit. I think...
Because you're still on the website videos together, aren't you?
Yeah, we're still business partners, and there's a lot of respect for each other. And I'd maybe go as far to say friends. Yeah, I think so. But when we met, we met at university, and then so through the history of the business, we've gone from friends, relationship, getting married, getting divorced, and now back to friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was difficult. It was interesting because I think both of us lived and breathed Bird and Blend for the first 6 years, and you're in it. You know what it's like. You're in it. You love it.
Yeah.
You don't mind working all hours a day. But I think and I didn't mind. I loved it, and it was great doing that with someone that I loved, because you get to ride all those highs together, and you're in it, and you're hustling, and and that's amazing, and it's very special to be able to do that with somebody.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is, if they're your life partner or a close family member, they also are there in the lows as well, and it's quite hard to get away from work. And
yes.
I think one of the things that I've kind of really taken away from therapy is that you should have you should balance a triangle of, you should be yourself, and then your personal relationships and your friends and things, and then your work. And it's quite hard to get those three things in balance. Something's usually on the back foot. Mm-hmm. And what Mike and I realised, was that we were prioritising Bird and Blend above ourselves and our relationship with each other outside of work. So we just had a really tough conversation and said, what's it going to be? Is it the business or is it the marriage? and luckily, it sounds sad, but luckily we both agreed it was going to be the business, that we both still really passionately believed in the business.
Yes.
And we both believed that we could run it together, and neither of us wanted to do it without the other one.
Yeah.
We just didn't want to be married anymore.
I mean, people always say about mixing business and pleasure, and I've also had a business partner, and he's my partner, and we've had a business together. And I agree, it's actually an extraordinary privilege to get to work with that person who you also love, and to see them at work, because I think often in relationships, you only see them when they're driving out the bin or whatever. And it's great to see them at work and have that shared joy. So I completely understand the kind of brilliance of it. And then I also think once a business takes on a life of its own, it is a responsibility, isn't it? And you have to set personal stuff aside for the sake of the business. Yeah,
I presume I mean, I don't have children, but I presume it would be a bit like divorcing with children, because
you can't both really get away from them.
You can't. You've got no choice.
Yeah, you've got no choice.
You're tied together.
Yeah.
We were like, we're tied to this now.
So you have to rise above the emotion and be polite.
Do we still have the same end goal and the same belief in the business? And because we did, we have managed to make it work. I'm not saying it's been easy. I mean, we don't speak the same language. In fact, we went through some emotional intelligence coaching at work, and Mike and I both had our report done and whatever, and we met together, and the coach said, she started by saying, I just want to say a massive congratulations for managing to run a business for 10 years together, because I've never seen two people with such different languages, like that speak completely different languages when it comes to that sort of thing. I'm very much about like my gut, creative, people, like very, very in the detail, but sometimes too much so.
Yeah.
Whereas Mike is a bit more analytical, top line, kind of don't sweat the small stuff, doesn't really want to chat about the ins and outs of how it, the emotional bits and feelings and things like that. But that's why we've made such a good team in business.
Yeah.
Because we've got those skill sets.
Yeah.
So the business is where it is today because of our partnership.
And what was it like when you had to share with the team that you were ending the marriage but carrying on in business?
So we actually didn't do that. We actually didn't tell anyone. So we weren't particularly coupley at work anyway.
Okay.
But we didn't tell anyone for 6 months while we were trying to figure it out, and only one person noticed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's again testament to the fact that we had this work-life balance and this work persona and relationship and whatever, and that didn't really change.
Yeah,
it's just that we didn't really have the relationship outside of work anymore. So the work relationship continued.
Yeah,
and we just tried to be adults about it really, and get on with it. And it's been fine for a few years. Interestingly, in the last couple of years, because this was 5 years ago now, last couple of years it's become, we've had to have some challenging conversations as the two of us maybe have different ideas about what we maybe want to do into the future with the business.
Right, but that's nothing to do with your personal relationship. That's just a business partner conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So
you've done so well with all these stores opening and really disrupting tea. What have been some of the kind of challenging moments you've had to overcome?
I think for the business, we had to rebrand the business. That was really, really tough. After we raised some money, so we were originally called Bluebird.
Yeah.
And the first time we crowdfunded, we did so to open the stores in London. So we went from having 3 stores all in the south, on the south coast, to having 6, 3 of which in London. And when we opened in London, we ended up in a trademark dispute with another brand, and that was really difficult. That was difficult for me because it was my first lesson in, you know, what I think is morally right and actually legally right is not necessarily the right thing for the business. And I can remember we got legal advice and they said, you possibly could win this, but it's going to cost a lot of money. You're going to be battling it for 6 months. Is this the best use of your time, effort and energy? And I thought, oh yeah, but I love the name, and I'd worked so hard, you know, building it up, and at the end of the day, I felt quite flattered, because the reason that they were annoyed is because we'd managed to claim, like, Google Bluebird at the time, and it was us, this small Brighton-based business with 3 stores, now 6 stores, and this big company were very annoyed about that. So flattered in a way, but logistically for the business, it was a pain, because we have always been very, very hot on our eco credentials and minimal waste, and having to manage turning around all the packaging and everything like that to a new brand without being super wasteful was a real challenge logistically at that time, and we were quite a small business. Not to mention the fact that the domain stuff did give us a bit of a financial, it put us back about a year.
Yeah, which I think is a big thing, a rebrand like that.
Yeah, it is. It took us a year to get our web, you know, domain stuff back to where it was. So it was a challenge, but you know, these things happen. I think personally, my biggest challenge has been, it's always people, isn't it? I think it's people. It's someone said to me at the beginning, like in the early days, like, you know, because we do everything in-house. We've got in-house teams for everything. We do our own fulfillment, production, content, design, everything. And someone said, like, don't do it like that. You know, outsource. You know, you can outsource your fulfillment, outsource your packaging, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, no, because what we want to do is create these jobs. I wanted to create an environment where people could bring their whole self to work. Yeah. And they could have a great job. Yeah. So I wanted it to be like that, and I wanted it to be a creative space and freedom and empowerment. And I can remember them saying, yeah, but it's going to be a HR nightmare, you know, and a cost as well. You know, it costs to employ all these people, and, you know, whatever. And I can remember thinking, well, I'm a nice person. I like people. Like, it'll be fine. And then along the way, I think some of the most special moments I've had have been around someone developing or growing or doing something amazing. But then some of the trickiest are when it all goes a bit wrong, and you go to bed, keeps you up at night worrying about someone, whether they're okay or whether you did the right thing and what they're going to do next if you've had to let them go, or you know, that sort of thing. I've always found that really, really challenging.
I think people are, I mean, everyone in business says people are challenging, and I think they are, because there's all of it from wanting to deliver their goals for them and helping them deliver their goals, and then being sometimes completely perplexed by some of the behaviour from the people.
I mean, you're
just like, what? I can't even understand it. And then having to reach a point where you almost stop being perplexed. You just think, okay. Well. Yeah. Because the perplexion itself, or, you know, I often have been baffled by my team members, and I've realised there's no point, because there's always going to be someone who's baffling somewhere, so you might as well just accept that sometimes people are baffling.
I agree. I think we've got to the point now, I got to the point about 4 years ago where literally nothing could surprise me. I'm just like, all right, okay.
Because it is extraordinary what people do.
I would never have expected it for that to have led to this, and you to have thought that or whatever, but it's funny, and I don't know, that's the joy of it as well, isn't it? Like
and then you are always so proud. I'm so proud of the young people that have worked for me and gone on to do amazing things on newspapers or in e-commerce. And you sort of, so I always try and think, no, a lot of young people have really progressed and gone on to amazing things, and kind of keep the focus on that. Yeah,
I agree. And I think that, you know, I can't say I want to create a culture where people are encouraged to bring their whole selves to work if I'm not happy to create an environment where people have opinions. And, you know, I agree with you though. I am confident that, you know, we're not perfect and we don't get everything right.
I don't think any business can be perfect and get everything right, particularly from the point of view of a large number of employees.
And in different
life stages and all with different perspectives. nobody could have a room full of people and everyone universally say, yes, this business is perfect, despite the best intentions of the founder.
Yeah, well, myself included. I'm not saying we're perfect, but the intent is definitely there.
Yeah, the intent.
And the same as you, I can definitely say that, I can count, more than two hands worth of people that are in positions elsewhere actually now that would just not be there if they hadn't have had the start in life at Bird and Blend.
Exactly.
And I'm really proud of that, and that's really cool. And also the retail jobs. I did hundreds of retail jobs, not hundreds, but a lot. I think I had. Yeah, I counted the other day. I've had like 30 jobs before the age of 20, retail and this, that and the other. And I'm confident that a young person on our retail shop floor, that is a great retail job. It's, they've got support, it's fun.
Yeah.
We're not, we're quite flexible. And like I said, encourage people to kind of have fun with it at work. And I'd love for a Bird and Blend to have been my first job in retail. I'd love that. Yeah.
And let's talk about burnout, because I wanted you to come on the first season of this program, and you weren't able to. And we then we were then discussing, and you were experiencing burnout at the time, and I shared that I'd had a similar episode, or whatever you call it. I don't know, that's probably not the right word, but a similar experience in 2019. Tell me about your experience.
Well, thank you for doing that, by the way, because I thought at the time, gosh, I've probably blown that. How rude, I was just up in the air, and and you sharing in your kind words. I was like, wow, actually, it's really cool that you'd.
Well, I don't normally talk about it, but I think you'd said to me, and I thought, and I listened to your voice note, and I was like, oh, I know what she's. I kind of know what this. I know what she's experiencing.
Yeah, I think it's something that I've been what I would call stressed for most of Bird and Blend. And tell me, have you ever met an entrepreneur that's not stressed?
No, I love the way you're like, I've been stressed the entirety of this business. Yeah,
so you know what I mean? And I have high tolerance for stress.
Yeah.
And, over the last and there's been periods when it's been majorly stressful.
Yeah.
COVID was stressful. Going through divorce with Mike was stressful. It's been really stressful at times, but I think burnout for me was something completely different. Like, I didn't see it coming. And I'd been operating at a really high stress level for about a year. And, you've got that constant feeling of just dread and anxiety and stress and, the physical impact of it,
And I would call it abject panic.
It's
constant
just
feeling of
living in a
abject
state
panic.
of, like, a friend described it to me as like you end up with like almost like this electric fence around you, and every little thing just touches the fence, and your whole body reacts into, even if it's irrational. You've got this physical, and I was having, I was taking medication for heart palpitations, my hair was falling out. I was having panic attacks,
I think it's a big thing, because for all of the success of the brand, it's like there is, it's not been easy for you as a person.
No, and it's interesting because probably in that year, last year in the lead up to this burnout, I was experiencing all of this, but the business was doing really well and the team were happy. And I actually think to them, I probably looked super on it, super happy. So, when I eventually had to say, look, I just can't come in, the outpouring of support was amazing, but also there was a lot of, I had no idea. But people just didn't know, because I was just, full steam ahead on getting everything done. But yeah, I don't know, a switch just flicked one day, and it was after I'd just done the interview for one of our, or an offer for one of our new leadership team. And I think there was something in my head that just flicked in, kind of, you've done that now, they're in the door, you can take the brakes off, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it was, I basically had to lock my laptop in the I put it in my bottom drawer for 3 months.
Did you?
I still can't turn my calendar back on because of the thought of the calendar. I mean, feeling loads better now. I'm fine. But yeah, I still can't open I had to change my email. I've got a new email because I can't go back into my email.
I'm not surprised
Just
because
the,
inboxes, some of these
the
things
binging
are
and the
overwhelming.
calendar notifications.
Yeah.
I just can't. I came off all social media.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling so much better now. But I wouldn't describe it as stress. I don't know, it's hard to describe. It was a complete shutdown.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, I know we discussed it before, is also, you know, I think I shared with you, and when that happened to me, I was thinking, this sort of stuff doesn't happen to me. Like, this does not happen to me. And then, you know, so then you think, and now I'm so much less kind of, I guess the word might be, I don't know, arrogant or whatever, because now I think, why would I think that shouldn't happen to me?
I know, it's funny, isn't it? Well, because you're a high performing person, right? You've got high ambitions and capabilities.
I know,
so
and I
always think.
And I like to think I'm a robot. I'm sure you like to think you're a robot. You know, everything, you'll just keep on soldiering through. I mean, my mum came up actually, she saw my calendar and she was like, that all needs to be deleted, all of that, because these calendars fill up with these calls, don't they? Back to back to back to back. I mean, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was funny because I put my laptop. You know, I can't go in. You know, didn't leave my house for about a month. You know, really unwell. Put my laptop away, and this was last May, and so nearly a year ago now. And I didn't think at that point that was going to be anything. It wasn't planned. I didn't at any point think that would be the start of a new thing or a different path for me. But once I started feeling a bit better, took about 6 months, you know, to start feeling like my head was back on straight. I realised that I've got off the treadmill, and I started thinking I was pushed off the treadmill, you know, off, and I started thinking to myself, I'm not actually 100% sure I want to get back on this treadmill.
Yeah.
Once you've seen the other side. Because when you're in it, you can't imagine anything other than being in it.
I think that's so true.
Because it's your whole world.
Yeah.
And you're existing in that state. But then, after kind of almost being forced to take a step down, I started, you know, rebuilding the things that actually, I guess, matter, and thinking, maybe I want to create some space in my life to keep some of these things, you know.
So what sort of things do you do differently?
Well, I did some travelling.
Yeah.
I took my camper van away for a bit. And I've seen more, it sounds really silly, but I've seen more of my friends and family. You know, I've been able to go to, you know, my friends' little ones' birthday parties that I've not been to for 10 years.
Yeah.
Managed to go away in the camper. You know, I've managed to get back to sport until I bust my knee. But yeah, you know, those sorts of things. They're really, really simple things. But I literally I didn't have time for any of those things before. And so, yeah, I've been tentatively stepping back into Bird and Blend and ensuring I've still got space and energy to invest in those things, which is a much healthier way of being, I think. Plus, they're good now. They've got a really good leadership team in place. You know, 2 years ago, I didn't have that luxury because it was still just Mike and I. We've now got a leadership team of 7 department heads. So, you know, it's gone from me founding a business, running a business, being a co-MD, running the e-commerce and the product and the brand team, to
do you know what? Every guest that comes on Tash
mean?
Talks has this story of how they've all done everything.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, the pressure you have to put
It's
yourself under
mad.
to get some of these things to where they end up is really phenomenal.
It is, and it's interesting as well because, you know, as I, you know, step back, had my burnout. It's interesting, like a couple of people are saying, like, "Oh, you've basically been doing like 5 jobs, Krisi. Like, how are you doing? We need 5 people to replace this.
People have to.
You do, but the benefit of that as well is not just it's not that I think that I'm better than anyone else out there in those things, but the kind of the passion behind it, but also the ability to be able to see how one thing links to another. And how it
and
gets
understanding
you to that
all the
end
parts
goal.
of the business,
Correct.
I think, is so important.
Yeah, it is.
Right, let's go on a little trip down memory lane. So the very first photo is a very glamorous white van.
It is. It was called Edward.
Okay, has a name.
Yeah, we Mike and I got it from I don't know, somewhere on the internet for like £250, and we would load up all the tea and the tables and stuff on the bottom bit, and then we put that awful shelf in, and we used to crawl in and sleep up there, because we wanted to be able to go and do all of these events, but we didn't have any money. We literally had no money, so we couldn't afford to be paying for hotels, or we didn't have premises or anything.
Yeah.
So we'd just drive to anywhere that would have us.
And where would you park?
I don't know if I should just on the side of the road in a car park, you know, wherever would have us really. Yeah. It was a tiny little clapped out van, yeah, that we would just sleep in to save money, which is how we ended up in Brighton. We came down, I'd never been to Brighton before. We came down to do a food festival, and we sold out, and we walked down the North Lanes and saw all the beautiful stores and the lights and the magic, and when we walked into the store that was our first store, and it was a record shop. We walked in, and the two people that own the building were the owners of the record shop, and they said, you know, what are you doing here? And we said, well, we're this company. It's only been going for 6 months or whatever, and it was like the stroke of luck, because they wanted to retire. They'd had the building for years. They wanted to retire to spend more time with their grandkids. So it had been his record shop for 30 years, and he wanted to pass it on to someone great. And his partner, his wife, was Anita Roddick, at the Body Shop's first ever manager in the Body Shop down the road. So she loved what we would. She said, you know, you remind me of Anita, and the vibe, and you know, the experience. And so they said, do you want the shop? So we,
oh my goodness,
we just
fantastic.
ended up with a store. But that was really difficult, because 2 years later, when we came to open our second store, we realised that you can't just open a store by wandering in and shaking someone's hand. They were like,
well, you can in places like Brighton.
They were like, do you have accounts? And I was like, not really. Do you have architectural drawings? I was like, no. Do you need those? Because we'd done it. We did a stroke of luck, and we're still there 10 years, 11 years later.
Incredible.
And they're still our landlord and lady, and they're fantastic.
Okay, so your next memory lane is a fantastic video. When was this?
So, when was it? I think it was 2014. Basically, a company contacted us and said, we want to do this promo thing where we're choosing 6 small businesses to pop up in London. So there's one store, it's open for 24 hours for 6 days. So we get it for 24 hours, and then overnight they change it over, and it's another brand. So we were really excited, because this was going to be like our first chance to be in London, like have a space in London. And they built the shop fit and everything for us, and we just had to like turn up with the products and sell the tea. So yeah, that was really exciting, kind of being able to put the products on the shelf, and like, you know, when you first open the front door, and you know, now it sounds really impressive to be like, oh, we've opened this store last month and we're opening 2 stores next month. But for me, like, that kind of excitement of the first couple of times you do that, where you're like, wow, like I've still got the £5 note from the person from the very first market that purchased from us. Yeah. And that kind of like your first sale, the first time you open the door, the first time you turn the open and close sign round, you know, like those are some of my happiest moments, I think.
So there's a more recent photo which I think reflects a change of pace in the way you're working and approaching your life, because this is this last year? This is in the last year, isn't it? In your first proper adventure, what happened?
Yeah, I think it's funny to have it in like a business concept, isn't it? This kind of more personal thing of travelling, but it is a business achievement. It's an achievement to me, because it signified a moment where I was finally able to put some of my time and energy into something for me.
Yes.
You know, I'd spent 11 years building this business. It's had everything from me, and I've been happy to give it. But at some point, it's got to start paying you in your life back. Yeah. And not necessarily in money. I mean, that would be great. But, you know, you've invested so much.
Yeah.
And often for other people. You know, I care a lot about my team and the business and the customers. But it's only fair that at some point you can kind of...
And I think it's an incredible achievement. How long did you go away for?
I went away for 2 months.
I think any business owner would think that is an incredible achievement. To get a business to a place where you can go away for 2 months is... I think, what most people are working towards.
Yeah.
So you've done it. I know there's been some pain on the way, but you've done it.
And I was really, really proud because I was able to actually switch off.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's an amazing, that is an achievement because, I mean, I can't switch off.
No, but I don't want anyone out there to think that that's like, it wasn't like that for 11 years, you know, it took a burnout to get to that point. But, you know, I was really proud that I was able to go and do something for me and turn off, and that business is fine.
I know, I think
I've laid good foundations and it's doing well. So
what would be your final piece of advice for women watching this thinking they could never do what Krisi's done?
Well, they can, absolutely, they can. I think for me, it's that I think often as women, well, men as well, but as women, there's often some sort of drive behind why we start businesses or why we do businesses that maybe isn't necessarily as on the surface as you think. It's quite a deep root. There's often a deep-rooted reason.
And it's not always money.
No, it's rarely money, actually.
For women, I think it's not always
I
money.
agree, and and that's magical, but my advice would be to kind of try and identify what that is and to view that as like the actual kind of superpower that you've got. Because whether it's to prove something to the world, whether it's to have a life where you can be creative, whether it's to facilitate elements of your life that you really want, whether it's travel or children or whatever it is, like there'll be a reason that's under your why underlying why you're doing what you're doing. And so my advice is twofold. One is never ever feel apologetic about that. That's what makes it you magical. And the other one would be remember that, I guess, because you probably care about it so much, because it's deep rooted in you, that like why you're in business, it can lead to you giving a lot more of yourself than necessarily is healthy over time, which I learned the hard way. You know, we don't have to give everything to our businesses. You need to keep something for yourself as well.
Oh, Krisi, that's fantastic advice. That really is. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been such a pleasure to meet you and hear about you.
Thanks for having me.
Tash Talks is proudly sponsored by Recharge for smarter subscription experiences. The world's best brands are powered by routine, and the world's best routines are powered by Recharge.